Human factors and safety management relationships. From accident records, it has been clearly indicated that people are normally the root cause of accidents, and that these accidents are most often related to working with equipment in the workplace, regardless of existing management systems within the organization. Human factor levels are identified by each layer: 1. Individual, 2. Environment, 3. Supervision, 4. Organization. Human error is a part of human factor, which is the term of news to explain the root cause of an incident. But this is only the first step. There are different types of human error with different causes, which are important to realize to help in prevention. Some actions that people call human error are not actually errors at all. The first type of problem is when we have a good plan of action, but we make a mess of it. We call this a slip. A slip is the result of a skilled person in automatic purchasing without paying sufficient attention. Like taking an exit too early on the highway. You might be distracted or you aren't concentrating very hard on the road. Suddenly you take an exit, but it turns out that the exit wasn't the one you wanted. Another way to make an error is to forget something. We call this a lapse. This is when you discover that you have gone past where you have been directed. Slips and lapses are failures in automatic purchasing when a good plan goes wrong. You didn't mean to take the wrong exit, but sometimes you don't always pay enough attention to what you should have done. Lapses happen when our memory gets overloaded and quickly causes us to forget what we should have remembered. Good plan, lousy execution. We're also good at solving problems, but occasionally things go wrong. We call this a mistake. Mistakes happen when we fail to understand the situation and come up with a lousy plan, usually one we can carry up perfectly. So, imagine you're driving along a familiar road and suddenly you're faced with a diversion. You need to decide whether to go left or right. Get it wrong and you'll find yourself in a lot of trouble, because then you'll become totally lost. Then you think that you knew how to get to your destination using a different route all along. But because of your mistake, you were wrong, and then you have to spend ages getting back on track. Mistakes are caused by failures to solve problems. Nothing beats people to solving new problem when they have the time. When you're under time stress or simply don't know all the facts, it's easy to come to a conclusion. But if this conclusion is wrong, we call it a mistake. A lousy plan and execution is not the problem. All these previous errors are unintentional. We didn't mean to do what we did. In the cases of slips and lapses, we didn't intend to make a mess of solving the problems at the mistake phase. These errors simply happen as part of being human. This is just the way we're wind up. However, there is one other type of error that's quite different from the rest. This is when an error occurs, but it's intentional. We call this a violation. And some people commit errors that they know they shouldn't do it. First, let's look at violations in more detail. Why do we worry about violations? The answer is just 1/3 of the equation. A violation plus an error equals disaster. This means it takes two components to make a disaster. Someone must be bending the rules, and someone else makes an error. For example, regarding confined space work. A supervisor may inform his team to finish the job without placing any safety signs or barricading the area. He just tells his people to hurry up and stop working at the end of their shift. He has always been successful in this approach until workers on the next shift come into the job site and go into the confined space thinking that it's a safe area because there are no safety signs. Bang! Just like there are different types of errors, we can also distinguish different types of violations. Unintended violations are where people are either unaware there's a rule or procedure because it's so complicated that people don't really understand it. I wasn't aware. I didn't understand. Routine violations. It is wrong, but people usually do it and accept it eventually. Situational violations are when a person believes that they just can't complete their job according to the rules. I can't get the job done on time if I follow the rules. Optimizing violations are when a person believes that they can get things done in a way that's faster, that is, organizational optimizing, or believes that their way just works better for themselves. Here's an example of personal optimizing. It was better for me to do it my way. With exceptional violations, people believe that there aren't procedures except for general guidelines that may be hard for them to follow. For example, just try laying down in front of an aggressive bear and lying very, very still. And the last violation is a reckless optimizing violation, or simply put, overlooking the possible consequences of the violation. For example, smoking in a prohibited area. Now, who violates this rule? In a study in the North Sea, it was found that there are two types of people when it comes to this: sheep and wolves. We added a twist to these groups. We wanted to find whether anyone had bent any rules in the previous 6 months. These we called clothing. If they hadn't bent any rules, they were in sheep's clothing, while those who admitted to violating recently were wearing wolf's clothing. The sheep are the guardians of high standards. Wolves are opportunistic go-getters who find new ways of working. Successful organizations need both animals, but in the right balance and in the right job position. Sheep in sheep's clothing are needed to operate well in hazardous environments. People who wear wolf's clothing find ways to identify problems and find new ways of solving them. What we found offshore was that for the majority of people, almost all of the first-line people, including the workforce, supervisors, and especially managers, were all wolves. But most people were wearing sheep's clothing. So, the largest single group working offshore were wolves in sheep's clothing. For them, given the opportunity, they would break the rules. Is it any surprise that violations are just waiting to happen? So, should we do nothing about human error? How will you use this information to understand other actions to improve problem solving and develop improvement plans? As mentioned, there are many causes of human error, which makes the process of solving each problem different. Solutions must match the root causes. For example, if an error is from an unintended action, a slip or a lapse, we can fix it by coaching on how to spot errors, how to pay attention, and how to concentrate on the job. In another example, if the error is a mistake because someone failed to understand the problem, then competency development must be performed. If the error is an intended action, such as an unsafe work situation or an increase in breaking the rules, people must be encouraged to speak up and stop work when the rules cannot be followed. And, in the case of intentionally breaking the rules without being reckless or ignoring the results that would occur to all, we must implement a just and fair culture by providing an investigation process and administering penalties in accordance with the prescribed regulations, such as a warning letter, suspension, or dismissal. Therefore, in order to be sustainable in solving problems caused by human error, we all need to learn, understand, and analyze the real root cause and how this will lead to effective problem solving. The correct problem solving will reduce the number of accidents and lead us to becoming a zero-accident organization.